Hey, Tourpreneurs, it's Mitch Bach, and just a quick note before we begin today's episode. Tourpreneur is currently sponsored by Google. We're thankful for their support of our community, and we are offering with them a completely free course helping you unlock the power and potential of Google's Things to Do program, which is specifically helping tour operators add their tours to Google in new ways that gives you new exposure and more direct bookings. To learn more, go to tourpreneur.com/Google. And as always, show notes, more resources, links to our newsletter, our business coaching community, and so much more are available on tourpreneur.com. Now to the episode.
Welcome to another edition of the Tourpreneur podcast. And in this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with John Kanaster of Battlefield Tours of Virginia. Now, John has created some interesting ideas and interesting experiences. He has created it in a way that it's made it bingeable, where it has people coming back time and time again to watch the next part of the episode or take out the next experience. It almost leaves every experience in a cliffhanger, wanting people to come back for more. Learn more about this and what John has developed, as well as how he set up his business and why he loves his passion of battlefield tours within the United States, specifically Virginia. So welcome to the Tourpreneur podcast and welcome John Kanaster. So welcome to the Tourpreneur podcast, John. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about yourself and know a little bit more about the passion that you have for the American Civil War, and what was it that made you fall in love with that period of history, and how that's sort of progressed into your business?
Well, thank you, Chris. It's really nice to be here and share my story with Battlefield Tours of Virginia. And I guess going with the deep dive, I got bit by the history bug when I was about 6 years old, and my family took a vacation from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania to Williamsburg, Virginia, with Washington, D.C. in the middle. It's kind of the fertile crescent of American history. Presidential homes and founding fathers, and learning about our American Revolution. And of course, the Civil War was rolled up in that. And it made a profound impact on my life. And it's something that I always read and studied and wanted to learn more about. It set me on the course of becoming a historian. I studied history, and I started giving historical tours from the age of 16 in museums and historical sites, volunteered and paid. And I actually worked for a military museum as a education and events director, and I developed interpretive programs. But in the end, I'm a U.S. Army veteran, and I ended up with a career with the government. But I found a niche where I had extra time and flexibility to pursue my passion, which is really history and sharing that with others. And so today I live in historic Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is about an hour south of Washington, D.C. And I've continued to be involved in the historical community with our battlefields here. I actually live on the Fredericksburg battlefield. That's where my house is.
Wow.
And in the process of helping out the local battlefield, sort of showing people around and volunteering and producing a museum exhibit for the National Park Service, I started to see that there was a need to get people mobile on these Civil War battlefields. And here in Fredericksburg, we have a very unique situation where we have 4 major Civil War battlefields within 20 square miles, which is one of the highest concentrations anywhere in the U.S. So there's a lot of them here. And a lot of people I found would start looking at these Civil War battlefields at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. It's kind of mm, uh, our best known battlefield, and they've developed that battlefield into almost a Walt Disney World experience with every kind of tour imaginable for this one battlefield. You could take a private tour, a bus tour, a horseback riding tour, Segway tour, a ghost tour. It's all there. And so after people start their battlefield journey, they come to Virginia, where we have the most battlefields anywhere in the US, here in Virginia. And they are shocked and astounded that we don't have any of those tour offerings, really. It's very difficult to find them. If you're lucky, you could find an old retired gentleman to meet you somewhere and hand him some cash and have him show you around. And so that's when I saw there's a real need for this, to get people mobile around a battlefield with a guide. And so that's where everything got started.
Well, I just goes back slightly. It's just the fact that you said that you started to do tours in a museum at 16 years old. No, I remember being back when I was 16, and I was probably trying to chase too many girls and drinking alcohol and everything else I should have been doing at 16.
Absolutely.
It's having that mentality of actually doing that in a museum and doing tours. I just find that fascinating that you had that mindset back at an early age. So
yes, well, our history in it, it doesn't matter where you are or what country you're in. You have different defining moments in your nation's history. And a lot of these defining moments are epic stories with real people that did incredible things. And I find that utterly fascinating. And it's something I've shared or looked into, and I would like to share that with others so they can discover that for themselves.
Yeah. So what was the period? How long were you a veteran for between that and then starting the business? So was it a recent thing, a recent change that you had?
No, I was a veteran for about 4 or 5 years, really. And then I continued basically doing something similar for the government. Matter of fact, I'm still employed by the U.S. government in the Washington, D.C. area. So I'm a tourpreneur that still hasn't quit my day job. Just because I'm so passionate about this. On that note, when you don't quit your day job, the process of being a tourpreneur is so much slower.
Yeah, you have to wear many hats, and if you've got the day job as well as trying to run a business, so that I can imagine I know for a fact it's very challenging. I did it myself when I started out in business, so it's very challenging, but it's one that will hopefully, in time you'll find rewarding, that you'll be able to make that switch, that you might not need that job anymore and you can rely on your own tour business. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So you used to run a different type of experience when you first started out. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, and why you changed, and why I hate to use that word pivot because it seems to be something that's overused since the pandemic, but what made you change from your initial sort of way you set up the experiences to what you've got now, and if you want to explain what that was as well.
That's right, Chris. So what I'm doing now looks a little bit different from what I started. And that was based on sort of the trends and demand, and sort of maturing as a tourpreneur. We don't have all the answers on day one. That's part of the tourpreneur journey that I'm sharing. So I wanted to get people mobile around our battlefield in a massive way on a shuttle bus. And partnering with our local downtown visitor center, which a lot of cities have these visitor centers where all of the tours meet up there. Our city had basically a staff that would sell our tickets from the visitor center. So it was very attractive to have our own, unpaid staff the day of selling our tour tickets. And so I wanted to build up to this shuttle bus and sort of test the business model. And so I first started as a walking tour, a downtown Fredericksburg Civil War walking tour. I also did something else to sort of try to generate revenue, which is a private battlefield tour service. And that these people that would get this walking tour, if they would want to see more of the battlefield or other battlefields in the area, I offered a private battlefield tour, which is basically hiring the guide by the hour, and the guide joins your vehicle. We don't provide a vehicle, which is a business model started from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which is really, they've been doing this since the First World War. And, if you want to talk about, one of the oldest tours, basically in the world, it's the Gettysburg private guides that started around 1916, where the guide joins your vehicle, which is a very economical way for anybody to get a tour, which is something that we want to do. We want to get people around these battlefields, no matter what economic level you're at. So I was offering the walking tour from the visitor center. And we had our website where you could also buy tickets online. I found out real quick that a lot of the people that want to see Civil War battlefields are older people, 40 and up, and they don't want to do as much walking, So, so I raised enough funds for my walking tour and my private tours to go ahead and get that shuttle bus. And so I started to offer shuttle bus tours now from the downtown visitor center.
Well, so having that shuttle bus, I imagine that's allowed you to provide those experiences to a larger demographic, and like you just say, get more of those sort of people who maybe don't like to walk as much or to walk as far.
That's right. It was basically to get people on the shuttle bus, and we had 6 different stops where we could stop, get out, see an area, get your great pictures, get a closer look, get back on the shuttle bus. But I had a problem with that, as far as I wasn't really getting the ticket sales from the downtown visitor center like I really hoped. And as a new tourpreneur, I really didn't know too much about SEO. I didn't have the funds for it necessarily. So I was hoping that the visitor center would provide enough ticket sales to supplement my online bookings. And that wasn't happening because the counter staff at the visitor center, who were, retired older ladies, they had no personal interest in the American Civil War. And even though they liked me personally, all of the tours that they were suggesting were for our downtown trolley bus tour. So we got very little ticket sales from our visitor center, and the management there wouldn't really do much about it. The management gave us a very poor location for our shuttle bus, which was kind of across the street from all the other tours. Our shuttle bus was pointed downhill. All you could see was the back of it. And really, the long story short was I didn't have the support of the visitor center as far as for ticket sales. I try to do different types of things to get more suggestions. And at the end of the day, our downtown bus tour was a monopoly. I didn't have the SEO to really get the ticket sales. I decided on my own early on I did not want to go with an OTA to get those extra tickets. And so during this time that I was trying to get the shuttle bus kind of up and going, my private tours were the ones that were really selling. And it was my private tours that were really keeping my shuttle bus tour afloat, really. And when people would go to my website, they were wanting to book a private tour with me to show them around these battlefields, just like they do at Gettysburg, which is really the gold standard, to have something very knowledgeable show you a Civil War battlefield. And so it was really after my first year of running the shuttle bus and seeing that this is really a heavy burden, that I did not have the support from my downtown visitor center, and other things. And the fact that my private tour was taking off really, and the different battlefield historians who are short staffed and are really nailed down at the visitor centers were actually sending people my way. They were the ones getting the phone calls for a tour around these battlefields, and the historians at these battlefields just cannot get people mobile around these battlefields. So it was at the end of my first year of running this shuttle bus, and I saw the writing on the wall and the expense, of running a shuttle bus with the maintenance, the insurance, and all of that. I decided at the end of the season to put the shuttle bus up for sale, which it sold within 4 days. I was, really thankful, and really go into private battlefield tours, full time, which was great because I had very little overhead with that. And it was really a blessing in disguise, Chris, because when I sold that shuttle bus in November, the very next spring was COVID, and I didn't have that shuttle bus. And I was
So you had no outgoings with that then, basically, which was good. So
yeah. So all of our other tours that operated from the visitor center, especially the Monopoly tour, they were all stuck in the mud. And I was able to run my private battlefield tours during COVID. As a matter of fact, kind of backing up a little bit, before COVID hit, I had a happy problem. And my happy problem was I had satisfied tour clients that had toured all 4 area battlefields in the Fredericksburg area, which takes a couple of days to do that. And because they couldn't find any other battlefield tour in Virginia, and there's dozens of battlefields, they were coming back to me and they were begging me to show them more battlefields in the state of Virginia. And they really didn't care which battlefield it was. Just please show me another battlefield. I really enjoyed your service. We offer comprehensive tours, very, very professional. And so before COVID hit, really, we were already developing more battlefield tours within an hour of Fredericksburg. And we were getting repeat clients back to see more and more battlefields with us. So it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, as to use that word, pivot from a walking tour, shuttle bus tour, to just really developing private battlefield tours.
Yeah, we'll actually come on to that in a second with what you've done with the multiple battlefields, because I found that fascinating, and I think a lot of the listeners will as well. But I just find it really interesting that the fact that, I was going to say typical operator. There is no such thing as a typical operator, but an operator who has a shuttle bus or a bus, you would think, okay, we could fill that up, we can take people around on tour and everything else. But the fact that you've went purely now into the private sort of tour aspect and got rid of your bus, it's actually showing a lot of the data that we are seeing as more and more people are wanting more private tours. Will happily pay that premium for the private tour rather than being stuck in a bus with lots of people they don't know, or in a group with lots of people they don't know. There's still a time and place for that type of experience. But it's one of the things that we always say where I speak to a lot of operators, through my agency and just day to day, is just, if you don't offer a private experience, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot, because it opens up so many new markets, because there is such a huge market out there for people just wanting that private experience with a tour guide, with with their family or with their friends and just them and no one else. And even, I don't know if you've seen it in your tours, but even the sort of multi-generational groups as
Yes.
well, where you've got kids and grandparents and mother and father there, etc., etc. We find that that's actually such a growing market as well.
Absolutely. We do see that multi-generational where you have a father that discovered this and he wants to show his son, or, you have the grandfather, father, and grandchild on this tour. And, speaking of generations, another service that we offer are ancestor tours. As far as you have, the American Civil War, you had, hundreds of thousands of troops that fought on these battlefields, and people are delving into their ancestry, which was also a popular activity during COVID, working on your family tree. So a lot of people, a lot of descendants want to go to these locations where their ancestors' regiment fought on these Civil War battlefields. And if they can provide us the ancestors' regiment, like the 10th New York Regiment, in a matter of minutes, we can locate that regiment on our battlefield map, and we can incorporate that into a tour for them to tell them, to show them, to make that connection on the battlefield, to talk about what action was swirling around their ancestors' regiment and what was the big story. So we get, quite a few ancestor tour requests to make that connection. And of course, if their ancestor was involved in one or more battle, they want to see all of the other battlefields. And so that's turned into a multi-tour opportunity as well.
I can imagine that's such a powerful experience for someone who's, I don't know what it would be, if it'd be great grandparents or whatever it would be, or that type of thing, but someone in their family in the past that you can stand there and tell them the story of your family member was here in this battle at this moment in time, right in the middle of this, where you're standing just now. That connection for the consumer or the person you're taking the tour out on would be huge, and I imagine that it can get quite emotional for them as well at times. So.
Yes, it's an incredible experience. It's an honor to do it. We get a whole gamut of emotions, from excitement. Some, they break down and cry. I'm kind of getting a little emotional thinking about it, because they've heard about this their entire life, and they finally get to that spot. They see it for their eyes, and it's a very moving experience. So
I would find that fascinating, and that's the sort of stuff I like to see when people are generating tours and stuff like that. Any way you can have an emotional connection with your audience, and that just sounds a prime example of how it can be done. If you can have that emotional connection, then they're going to come back time and time again. You're going to get those great reviews and everything else from that, because that is something that you really can't buy on bus tour or a typical tour. And I say, again, I use that word typical loosely, and what you would normally get in an experience like that. If you can have something that's more personal and that sort of generational thing and ancestry, I love that type of experience. And anyone listening who are able to be in a position in their destination to offer something like that, I think would be you would do very, very well, in my opinion. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, before we talk a little bit more about experiences, etc. One of the things, if anyone who knows me personally or read my book or anything like that, will know that I'm a huge advocate of a strong brand and a clear brand, something that really highlights what it is that your business does, just by looking at the logo or the marketing materials around it, or how that's presented to the consumer. And that was a position you were in. You decided to sort of rebrand. How has that rebrand? Do you want to sort of let people know what that rebrand was and how that has affected your business now going forward?
Right, Chris. So that's a great question. Coming out of COVID, I decided to rebrand our tour company just to better reflect what we do, and to kind of get everything kind of straightened out from when I first got started, which when I first got started, like a lot of tourpreneurs, didn't know much about this. I tell tourpreneurs, I'm a historian first. a businessman second, and a tech guy dead last, So when I first got started as a tourpreneur, I try to think of a simple name when people did Google searches, because I knew I would have really not a whole lot of SEO budget. And I wanted to do other tours besides Civil War tours. I wanted to do architectural tours and American Revolution colonial tours and maybe African American tours. So I came up with a simple name, which was Fredericksburg Tours, thinking people would do a Google search for Fredericksburg Tours. And we're headquartered in beautiful Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is just a real charming town on the river. I found out that name was very confusing because it was too generic, and people got us confused with, our trolley tour or the visitor center. There was a Fredericksburg, Texas, which I knew about, and they offered tours. So every once in a while I'd get people wanting Fredericksburg, Texas. I even got a review for a Fredericksburg, Texas tour, on one of my listings, which was kind of funny. Like a lot of tourpreneurs, I didn't know if we would survive COVID or not, which we did. And so we actually kind of, got stronger during COVID. And so as we emerged out of COVID, I felt like that was the opportunity to really rebrand, change our name to better reflect what we do, which we don't do the walking or the shuttle bus tour. Our niche really is just private Civil War battlefield tours, and our name needed to reflect that. And I figured, since we're changing our name, to really overhaul our website, which, my website was a Weebly template. I could only get so much out of it, what I wanted to do. I couldn't really do what I wanted to make it do. I basically, growing out of the state of Virginia, I've divided the state of Virginia into areas like you would in a country. And offer different battlefields in those areas. And I really couldn't get that out of my website, my Weebly template. And so I decided to pull all of this stuff together. And coming out of COVID, January is really when I discovered Tourpreneur, Shane Whaley. And that's really when I figured out a lot of things I had no idea about being a tour operator. We're, being isolated and not really knowing a lot about this. I read a very inspirational book, How to Turn Your Online Lookers into Bookers, which was a great.
I did pay you for that plug.
Yeah. And there was, a marketing company behind that. And so I figured, well, I already wanted to rebrand when I discovered Tourpreneur and Shane Whaley. And I found a great, kind of guide through that. And so that's when I changed the name into Battlefield Tours of Virginia. And with that, took the moment to link with a marketing company. A big decision with that, as I shared, I haven't quit my day job, so I don't quite have the time, and time is money. So going with a marketing company that could straighten out everything as I rebrand, with a bigger and better website, and apply a lot of these things that I've learned through Tourpreneur. It was actually just launched. My new brand was launched last September. So it's been less than 90 days, but I've had a great, reception from it. People can understand it a lot better. That was another problem I had was people understanding these private tours, because it's a different concept. Half of my clients get it because they've done this or they're aware of it from Gettysburg, where you hire the guide by the hour to join your vehicle. But half of my clients don't get it. They expect us to provide a vehicle which would cost significantly more. And when I tell people the price point for that, then they're sold for the guy joining their vehicle, so they can see more battlefields.
Yeah.
Um,
No, on the brands, no, I remember when we spoke about it initially, no, part of it was to just make it so much easier for the consumer to know exactly what it is that you do. So, Battlefield Tours of Virginia basically tells people what it is that you do. So you offer tours around that side of things, but also allows not just for them, but allows you to focus on that for your marketing as well, and your messaging and everything else, knowing that that's the one niche that you're going down. So you know that everything has to be focused to that, and it just sets your mind to be more like that as well. And even the previous name, especially for some foreigners, just spelling that, Fredericksburg would be quite hard for some foreigners as well. So that's what a lot of people and a lot of operators need to realize. No, don't just think about your own local area or the American market or whatever. If you're getting visitors from different countries, think about how they're going to be able to spell some of these words or anything like that as well, and just try to make it really, really simple for them. So, and that, again, that was one of the other reasons why we suggested the change as well. So, but to go back to your experiences, the fact that you've now got these sort of multiple sort of battlefield tours. It was one of the things that you mentioned when we before you came on in the email to me that I found really interesting, and it sort of made me think you've now looked at your experiences almost like how Netflix looks at when they release a new show, and they tend to, for the most part, release them all in bulk so people can binge watch those sort of episodes and things like from their favorite shows. And you've sort of done that with your experiences, that and it's allowed you to have that repeat business, that you can go to Battlefield Day, you can get some good history and knowledge and a great time in that experience. But then if you want to find out more about the journey further from that and the next period of that history, then you can come on to the tour for Battlefield B, etc., and go on from there. So you've sort of created a sort of almost like an episodic way of delivering the experiences and tours. Do you want to just explain a little bit more about that, because I find that fascinating?
Yeah, so I've created what I call a binge watching tour experience, Chris, which might sound kind of funny. And it started because a lot of my clients were very confused about what battlefield they should see, and they're really overwhelmed. There's all of these different names: Gettysburg, Antietam, Manassas. And so they're trying to figure out, where do I start? Where do I begin? And so what I've done is I've tried to share how these battlefields are almost like episodes and, series, really, or seasons and episodes like you would with a TV series. Yeah. So the American Civil War, you could look at it as far as it's, 4 years. You look at that as 4 seasons. And within every year, you have battles, which are like episodes. And all of these battles, they're related to one another. They're not isolated events. There's other things that happen as far as politics and, things that happen. And so what I've done is when I get that phone call or email, I find out, well, have you been to a battlefield before? And half of my clients, they've already been to Gettysburg, which we've established as like the Walt Disney World of battlefields. So what I try to do is I try to link other battlefields related to Gettysburg, as in seasons and episodes. So if Gettysburg is season 3, episode 3, I try to get them to season 3, episode maybe 2 or episode 1, which we have that here in Fredericksburg. We have the 2 battles that led up to Gettysburg and the 2 battles that came after Gettysburg. So we can link those battlefields like episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So they all relate to one another, which really creates a more comprehensive, enriching experience. And they kind of get it. The Civil War, kind of as a sidetrack here in the US, was the biggest or most popular record-breaking documentary here in the US was the Ken Burns Civil War series, which was done in sort of an episodic sequence. And so it's a much more enjoyable experience knowing that these battles are all related. So I might get a phone call just to tour one battlefield. And when I can show them how these battles are linked, it's turned it into a multi-battlefield tour experience. Or instead of spending one day looking at some battlefields, now they want to spend 2 days with me, touring all the battles that led up to Gettysburg. And like any episode on TV or whatnot, usually it ends on a cliffhanger so that you'll tune in to see the next episode. So all of my guides, I have multiple guides that give these tours. It's not just me. Most of the time we'll end a battlefield tour on a cliffhanger because guess what? There's another one that's going to come after this one.
Mm-hmm.
So after our clients get a really high quality experience with us and they get really excited and their tour ends on a cliffhanger, they will come back. I have a very good success rate of return clients that want to pick up where they left off and continue with this kind of binge watching tour experience. And
I just see that's opened up so many doors. And again, for anyone listening and watching, it's just, so basically what you've done is you've created separate tour experiences that all link together. So creating that episodic sort of tour or experience, as you said, each one ends in a cliffhanger, leaving them to want more, so they hopefully come back. And from what you're saying is they do come back. So you're getting that repeat business, which a lot of operators listening are scratching their head on how they can create repeat business. Because for a lot of operators, especially day tours, is they'll come do it once and then maybe never ever do it again. So that's what tends to happen. But not only that, then you've also opened the fact that you can now pivot from just offering day tours to multi-day tours, which in the way that you've done it is such a fantastic way of making that more of a natural progression rather than trying to think, okay, what can I do as a multi-day tour that can last 2 or 3 days? You can do that now because of your situation and creating that sort of episodic day-by-day experience. And for anyone listening, this is a prime example of how this can be done successfully. And I have to commend you on that. So.
Yes, it can be done. It could be done, especially with history and culture tours, maybe others. One example is, Americans are obsessed with, the British royal family, but it's so confusing, going over hundreds of years, the Elizabethan period or the Tudors. But if you could make that into a chronological experience and link them, you'll bring them back because they'll want to pick up with that, drama and epic series,
Hence The Crown is so popular. So
yes, absolutely. There you go.
So there you go. So no, I find that absolutely fascinating for that. So again, anyone listening to that will take note. No, you can create multi-day tour experiences, or looking at what's in your area, what's in your destination. What can you do that you can make it episodic and make people want to binge watch and come time and time again and do that? So I think, if anything you've taken from this podcast and this video, that's the main one for me, because that can open up so many revenue streams for a lot of operators out there that are looking for ways to generate that extra cash. So I think it's brilliant, to be honest. Really, really good. So what's next for Battlefield? Now you've got all this. No, what's your sort of next steps? Where are you hoping to take it?
That's a great question, Chris. Well, I actually got that sort of developed at our last Tourpreneur shindig in DC with Pete and Mitch, and they really helped to kind of formulate some of my thoughts and really where I need to go. Up until this point, my tour business has really been sort of inbound, getting the bookings coming to me, which has been really nice. But really, my focus going forward really needs to turn to more outbound, and going after really, student bus tours in the Washington, D.C. area, which is something I really want to do, is to go after a younger audience. Most of my tours are an older audience, 40 and up. They've studied this their entire life. Now they have the time and money. But getting, students from across the U.S. or from different countries visiting Washington, D.C., it's an easy 1 hour down to the Fredericksburg area battlefields, which is, much closer than Gettysburg, where they're going to. So getting these larger tours, also really going, outbound after businesses, corporations, government, to offer training sessions with them. Training meaning going over things, using the battlefield as a classroom, study a battlefield and learn things like leadership, communication, what you do when things go wrong, thinking outside of the box, things like that. Another training session would be diversity, which is a big hot topic for businesses or corporations. We have a big lesson in diversity here on our battlefields, learning about the enslaved people, learning about the Emancipation Proclamation of freeing the enslaved people, and then putting African Americans in uniforms and learning about those soldiers that helped to turn the tide in the American Civil War. So really, that's where I'm going, is becoming more of an outbound tour operator. With my inbound sales, that's an X price point. But for outbound, going after larger tours, I can make substantially more, which I would call Y. And so I learned from Pete and Mitch, that my excellent new website is like my storefront, and my private tours, look really good to, my larger outbound clients as they look at, as far as what I'm doing. And so that's really what I've got going forward. And sort of something to share is that on my journey as a tourpreneur along the way, I've really tried to focus on one word, and that's quality. Quality tours, and the guides that I've attracted are all individuals that are immersed in the Civil War battlefields. And most of them are historians or authors. Over half of my guides are published authors on these Civil War battlefields. So they're not people that I'm taking off the street and handing them a script that they're going to regurgitate 5 times a day. Yeah. These are individuals that know this subject and beyond, so that when they get a question, it's not a question that, it's off the script. They know not only the what, but they know the why and the how behind these battlefields. And that's really kind of been a successful key as far as attracting clients that see, your guide wrote a few books and you guys know a thing or two. And it also helps to get a, return clients as far as they've had a quality experience with a very knowledgeable guide. We've given them a comprehensive experience. Once they're done with a battlefield tour, there's no reason to come back to that battlefield unless they want to explore it more. Now they can move on to another battlefield tour.
Yeah, I think it's great, John, and I wish you all the success in the world. I really do, and I think with the direction you're going down in terms of going after students and schools and various other things, that combined with the episodic nature, I think that could be something where a classroom could come time and time again to learn new parts of history for their curriculums and stuff like that as well. I think you could be onto a winner with that one, to be honest. So,
thank you, Chris.
No, you're right. So how can people find you if they're interested to know more about you and your business, or maybe even want to take out a tour and check you out? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to our website, our Facebook page, TripAdvisor, Battlefield Tours of Virginia. And you can go to either one of those sites, see what we're about, contact us, phone, email. I love to talk to other tourpreneurs. If you have any questions, if I can help you, I've learned so much from other tourpreneurs. I love to return the favor.
Oh, brilliant, John. Brilliant, John. And then, like I say, I found it fascinating. And again, if anyone's listening, if you get one takeaway, having something there that you can create various tour options, and having day tours and multi-day tours and that episodic thing, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And I think it's what a lot of operators listening should be thinking about in their own business. So thanks again for your time, John, and hopefully see you at another Tourpreneur Shindig at some point in the future.
Thank you, Chris. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.